All right. Guess we're gonna just start a little bit early. Just a few minutes early. Just a few. How's everybody doing tonight? Hopefully you're all good. I am trying to find some energy this week to get some stuff done. It's really not an easy thing to do sometimes, but I'm trying. I'm trying my hardest. Uh, got some new videos out, so if you guys want to check the YouTube for those, that would be great. Um, yeah, got a few things we're going to talk about today. Got a couple of Ukraine updates. I did a whole stream on it last time, so I'm not going to focus completely on that this stream. I wanted to do some more fun stuff. I am going to definitely go over a or an article uh, about climate change. So that's going to be the only other serious thing that we're going to do. Then I'm going to probably do some React videos. I just got a video from uh, Jubilee that I want to go into. And uh, yeah. I think that's probably it. Well, actually, we might go over a couple of Jubilee videos, or there's one other one that we might go over as well. But then for the absolute rest of stream, I am going to attempt to play an MMORPG. Now, I haven't played an MMORPG really extensively at all. I've played two for very short periods of time, and that was DC Universe Online and Star Trek Online. And from what I hear, those aren't like fantastic games. They're games that I was interested in because I'm a huge DC and comic book fan and a huge Star Trek fan as well. So uh, we're gonna see how this goes. So we're gonna play some Lost Ark because I've been hearing a lot about this. So I don't know if we'll get through much besides the the character creation and the prologue or whatever the opening is, but we'll give it a shot, right? That's what we're gonna do. So yeah, let's go ahead and start that intro so we can get this shit kicked off. All right. Let's see here. Yeah. What's up, everybody? Just chilling. Give me 1 second here. Oh, that's yeah. I should look at that later, but that's okay. Interesting stuff. All right. Anyways, guys, how is everything going tonight? What are you guys up to? I've got some fun things planned for us, as I said in the intro there. I also wanted to point out my new little friend over here. We got Grogu chilling eating a bat over here. I thought he'd be cool to put up there. And then I didn't know if you guys noticed the mask back here as well. That's just recently put in to the stream background. Yeah. All right. So real quick, we're gonna do the not so fun stuff first. All right. So it's been ongoing. You guys know it's been going on. You guys have heard a lot about it. I did an explanation video on what started it. So we're in an ongoing conflict here, or the Ukraine's in an ongoing conflict with Russia, which has gotten the whole world up in arms and got the whole world kind of worried because Russia is a nuclear power, and Ukraine has asked for the help of the world's citizens, and so people are kind of trying to do a balancing act, trying to figure out how much they can do and what they can do without Putin being a crazy fuck and blowing everybody to smithereens. So, recently, he's not been doing very well in this war by any means, by any stretch of the imagination. They've lost. They're an occupying force that's like so many, like a metric fuck ton times the size of the Ukraine's army, and it's also a larger force, or more technical force. They've got a lot more tools and toys and things. So you would think that they would be doing a better job than they are, but Ukraine seems to be holding their own and completely embarrassing Russia on the battlefield. They are destroying their equipment, their vehicles by the thousands. They have put out videos of tons of Russian soldiers stranded because they've run out of fuel. There's been thousands of captured and killed Russian soldiers, and they've just been fucking giga chads about the whole thing. They're owning it. They're holding their own, so that's good. So I think that kind of led to this right here. It says that peace talks ended between Russia and Ukraine, no breakthrough as shelling continues. But the fact that they stopped to have a peace talk is one thing. It shows that Putin isn't doing as well as he thought he would, and he's probably getting a lot of pressure from other oligarchs as well as prominent figures and just the regular citizenry of Russia. So let's take a look at this. We'll go ahead and go over this part here first.
NBC News reporter Matt Bodner is in Belgorod, Russia for us. Matt, I understand that officials from Ukraine and Russia have wrapped up their meeting today, those two delegations. What do we know about those conversations?
Thank you, Aaron. Well, they ended about 30 minutes ago, and we're starting to get kind of the initial statements out of participants in both sides. From the Russian side, we're hearing this is about a 5-hour conversation in which they are saying they felt that the Ukrainians heard them and took care to try to listen to their side of this negotiation, and they're claiming that there were kind of several points in which they agreed they could start working on, and that they're now both sides returning to their capitals.
I wonder what that means. Like, both sides are working on, like, what did Russia concede? I mean, they're still bombing places, so it's not a ceasefire by any means, obviously. But I just kind of wonder what has been proposed in these meetings.
And may hold further talks. Now, we've also heard from the Ukrainians on this, and one of President Zelensky's advisors said that the main thing for the Ukrainians was a ceasefire. On the Russian side, they said that they hoped, after kind of laying out their concerns, saying they hoped that it would work out. So we're still trying to figure out where exactly this fell on this one. But I do note that just a few minutes ago, just before coming on air, we started hearing reports of massive explosions in Kyiv. So it's not exactly clear if a ceasefire was kind of agreed on in this meeting, despite what the Ukrainians are saying, or if it's just a further topic of discussion. We're going to try to find that out. But at the moment, not exactly clear.
Okay, so there's not much information there as far as that's concerned. Jesus Christ. Stop. All right, there we go. So let's see here. Let's go over this a little bit. It looks like members of, Ukrainian American organizations are trying to do what they can as well, because you see this You Pray Ukrainian American Church sees influx of parishioners and welcomes new arrivals. So it seems that people are trying to connect with their community more through those types of things. And then there's thousands of refugees that are being sent outside of the Ukraine. A lot of people are still stuck in the Ukraine. But things are still going on as they have been, even in light of the peace talks. Now, I do want to go over this with you as well. Let's see here. Because I don't know if you guys remember me talking about the Snake Island soldiers. These guys were fucking, like, just the most courageous people. They're just amazing, like, soldiers who we all thought were dead because they told a Russian warship to go fuck themselves. But it turns out that the defiant soldiers of Snake Island are actually alive and well, says Ukraine Navy. So just to remind you, just to give you a little reminder here. We'll show this.
They fought off 2 attacks by Russian forces. They went toe-to-toe with a Russian warship to defend a tiny island in the Black Sea.
Fucking Chads.
Ukrainian forces on that island telling the Russian warship what they could do or where they could go.
Sigma male.
Those were supposed to be the last known
Right there.
words heard from the island. There were fears that the Ukrainians, those soldiers on that island, had been killed. But the Ukrainian Navy says the defenders of Snake Island, also known as Qizmhet Island, are alive and well. CNN international security editor Nick Payton-Walsh joins us now from Odessa.
I hope that's true. Like, I hope it's not just like, I would like to hear from them. That would be awesome if we could hear that they're okay, and they should get a big dick award or something like that, like big balls award.
Odessa, Ukraine. So Nick, what have you learned about the status of the Snake Island defenders?
Yeah, I mean, it has been an extraordinary story, almost of legend, even in this exceptionally brief conflict so far. President Volodymyr Zelensky, as you said there, suggested they had all died after telling that Russian warship where it could go. Then they appeared on Russian state media, seemingly alive, but it was kind of unclear, really, because of the sort of propaganda nature of that appearance. Now it seems, according to the Ukrainian Navy, all 82 of them surrendered when they ran out of ammunition. They are alive, and that somehow keeps this extraordinary legend, which has sort of changed.
Okay. So they're alive, but they were captured by the Russians. So there's still a chance.
Context, as the information has as well, a real example of what people call kind of the fog of war here, into a whole new level as well. But this is part of the story of what's happening here on the Black Sea coast, Anderson. I'm in Odessa, where there's a blackout, a curfew, intense concerns about a Russian bombardment here, fears of Russian warships off the coast. We've been along the coast all of the last 4 days. The town of Kherson, where we were in a matter of days ago, I spoke to residents there. They are now seeing Russian vehicles on the streets of Kherson. Unclear who's in control, but it seems the Russians have freedom of movement within the populated areas there. The town of Mykolaiv, we reported on from the weekend. The mayor there has called the men of the city to the defence of it. He called them out on Sunday too, but that was a false alarm. But they're now seeing what...
So yeah, they're still messing shit up over there.
They say is a 100+ strong convoy on the outskirts of that town. Deep concerns there as well because of the violence we saw being inflicted on civilian areas there with heavy weaponry. And now over here, Odessa on high alert, barricades across the streets here, utter silence in this third largest city of Ukraine. It's a strategic port. You can't really run the country without controlling this economic lever to it, and real concerns here. I think that while we're seeing the Russian movement stall up north, they have moved up from Crimea and appear to be having more motion. Unclear if that's permanent progress.
So they really got stopped in the north because they were just like the soldiers that were coming in from Belarus towards Kiev were just getting fucking owned left and right. Kharkiv is a different story. They're they're still holding their own there, but things are a lot more chaotic. They're a lot more to the point where there's an unstable environment. Nobody knows who's going to win there. And I have to feel for the people who are stuck in bomb shelters there and in Kiev as well. So it's just a crazy time, guys. It's definitely something that is ongoing, something that we need to keep watching. And hopefully, if things keep going the way they're going, it may be that Putin is ousted by his own country, his own powerful, rich people in his country, the oligarchs and everything. So we'll see how that goes. Not much else going on right now except for that. I will have more news later in the week about Ukraine. I did want to talk about some other like individual stories. I'll probably come back to the story about the woman who does the What is Ukraine videos, because she had an update on her channel too. So we'll look into that. She is alive and well, so it's good to hear that. But yeah, just keep an eye out for this stuff, guys. Keep your ear to the ground when it comes to Ukraine, and just know that we will be giving you as much information as possible here on it as well. Okay, well, that's about it on that one. Man, I am really just not feeling well today. Let's see here. Turn that off. It's starting to get sweaty in here. All right. So one serious story down. Excuse me. All right. So we are going to go over 2 videos, I think, before we do our last story, and then start Lost Ark, because I just want to play some video games tonight. I'm really, really tired, and just from all this coverage of Russia, I'm just like, I'm so drained because of all of the stuff going on in the world and in personal life and everything. So trying to make sure that I'm staying up on my medications and stuff too, because boy, I forgot my depression medication for a couple of days. It really affected me. So hopefully I've got some more energy by the end of the week to deal with things a little bit more. I'm going to try to stream 3 times this week if possible, but I am going to change, I believe, the format a little bit of what I'm doing as well. I'm still going to stream, don't get me wrong, probably once to twice a week at least. And then I'm also going to be putting out some produced videos on YouTube. Some things that are a little bit more structured. I feel like I would gain from that as well. And I'm hoping that it will get my name out there a little bit more as well. I just need to figure out how to kind of pick things up on the channel here, because I'm having a lot of problems getting viewers on a regular basis, like live viewers. Doing okay on videos, but live viewers is a little bit more of a problem in the past couple of weeks here. And I'm sure it's because it's been hard for me to be consistent, but that's okay. We'll get it figured out. We're not going to quit. We're going to keep the truck a-rolling. Keep the train a-moving. But we're going to do this video here, I believe, first. We're going to do a couple fun things. Let's see here. Yeah, here we go. So
ground.
So this video right here, I just recently came across. It is a new Jubilee video. You guys know how I love my Jubilee videos. This one is particularly interesting. It's on a subject that I've put forth before about masculinity and things and trans rights. So this one is particularly, it's trans versus conservative men. And it says, is masculinity disappearing in America? So we're going to give this a watch. See what y'all think while I give my personal opinions on it.
Is a social experiment that brings humans with opposing beliefs together. These discussions may contain viewpoints that are the result of misinformation. Remember to seek out experts and to be critical of your own biases while forming an opinion. Please see the humanity in each participant, and as always, we encourage empathy.
Video discussion of sensitive topics may be upsetting to some viewers.
You have to understand you're redefining a fabric in society that has kept the human race and got it to where it is today.
But do you see the state of our world today? It's not perfect, and it's been led by men like throughout all of history, and look where it's gone.
This proves to be interesting.
Step forward if you agree with the prompt. Masculinity is disappearing in America.
All four of these guys.
I think that
three of them
masculinity is disappearing. I think that it's a concerted effort to emasculate men. I think that some people feel threatened by masculinity and the.
I think you're the one who feels threatened there, bud. Here's the thing, guys. I think that people have this conservative view of what masculinity is, and it has to be only these things, right? It's this modern view that's only been really built up around men over the past, 100 or so years in this country. Those things were what we conceive as the status quo of men, right? But many of you probably don't know that high heels were once considered masculine, right? They were made for men. High heels were. It's a thing. Men used to wear dresses and they were considered masculine. I mean, look at Scottish kilts, for instance. Those are a skirt, basically, but also considered a very masculine thing to do. So what defines masculinity? What do these guys feel like masculinity is? Is it dominance? Is it lack of emotion? Is it, what is it? What are they talking about?
The typical way that men carry themselves, leading families and different things like that. So I think that there's an effort to mitigate strong men in America.
There's a few different ways to think about masculinity, but just looking at kind of the definition of the term 50 years ago, you had people like John Wayne, you had Martin Luther King, you had Sean Connery. You think of like masculine features as in beards, hairy chest, big muscles, think stoic, being brave, being rugged, being a provider. Today you have people like Harry Styles and Timothy Chalamet. You have people that are completely contrary to what we were looking at back then, and those values of those masculine characteristics are completely devalued.
I do believe that masculinity is going downhill, especially if you look at like the testosterone.
Oh, hey Harley. Well, tonight's topic, this video is about trans men and conservative men and finding middle ground. But you'll be happy to hear that I'm gonna build a character. At least build a character. I got started a little bit late tonight, but I'm gonna build a character for Lost Ark and maybe possibly start the beginning of the game. Get that all worked out. So yeah. So we'll have to play sometime soon. But yeah, I'm just doing a small stream tonight. I'm not feeling very well. It's kind of a pain in the ass. My nose is all stuffy and it's not been a very good day as far as my health is concerned right now. But anyways, continue this.
Levels, now the testosterone levels for guys is going down compared to generations before us. So yeah, I agree. Hi, I'm Gilbert. I'm 24 years old and I'm a conservative man. With my beliefs and having a trans man as my friend, we don't really talk about politics. Someone being trans doesn't make me like them any less of a person. As far as pronouns, when referring to my friend, I don't really use the pronouns that my friend would want. I just say my friend or I say their name. Just because I feel like I'm giving into the narrative that men can be women and women can be men if I use the pronouns.
God, he won't even respect his own goddamn friend. That's kind of fucked up. Like, seriously. I don't get it.
That they want.
I do see that masculinity
Yeah,
is
it
under
pisses
attack
me off too.
completely, but my definition of masculinity, like you said, has a lot to do with the traits that are associated with it. As a gay man, I mean, of all of us, you know, I mean, I'm not the most masculine man, but I do think that the good aspects of masculinity are definitely under attack, but I don't think that it's disappearing.
I've never understood, like, conservatives being LGBTQ as well. Like, if you're a gay man, like, it's kind of antithetical to who you are to follow a group of people who are, and be part of a group of people who are as divisive and as unaccepting as many conservatives are.
It's just being channeled in different ways.
It depends on how you look at it, because a lot of the traits can also be embodied in women and femininity. So when we look at masculinity, I think that we have to also look at what is the actual definition of femininity and masculinity.
That's a trans man. You see, I mean, I would think he's pretty masculine, man. He's pretty, you know, rugged looking dude. Seems pretty well put together.
And if we're defining masculinity by being stoic or muscles or body parts, then is it really masculinity?
A lot of times when you guys spoke about masculinity, you associate it with men being manly, but I think more women are embracing their masculinity. Masculinity is still there. I mean, just other genders are using it. Being courageous, being powerful, more women are standing in their power, which is again associated with masculine, but it's not specific to just men. Women are no longer submissive, they're dominant. Women don't need men, and I think that most of America is realizing that anyone can be powerful on their own.
I believe that.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Like, you don't have to be a man to embody traits of masculinity. And you don't have to be a woman to embody traits of femininity. I think that we all have the capacity for both. Yeah, I love everything they said too. You gotta have the capacity for both. I mean, I think, you know, I'm an extremely empathetic person. And that's usually traditionally seen as a feminine trait. You know, but I'm also like got some masculine traits as well. Like, you know, I'm kind of crass sometimes. I am outspoken. You know, I am loud and obnoxious sometimes, but I like doing things on my own. I sometimes on the bad side of things, I don't always know how to ask for help when I need help. So that's a big masculine thing too, is kind of hiding from that. But I don't have any fear of showing my emotions. So, I mean, I guess there's, you know, and I know women that have masculine and feminine traits as well. I think that there's too much rigidity and how those are supposed to be. Like, it's too rigid, you know, and like we can't bleed over into each other. I feel like it's more of a spectrum. I know I'm attracted to feminine more, as far as physically, and then, you know, there are some like traditionally masculine traits that I'm attracted to as far as personality is concerned, and that's like somebody who is outspoken and self-sufficient, and somebody who can be a rock for me just as much as I am for them, that sort of thing.
That the masculine traits are inherently in men, and men have to take a position. You made a really good point by saying women are now becoming more masculine. They feel as if they don't need men, which I think is the problem here. I think that the way we've been designed by God, in my opinion, is that men are to lead.
See, when conservatives like have a bad take on something, they always invoke God. Like they always bring God into the conversation because their argument can't stand on its own. So they have to bring in their belief system, which is based on faith. And a book that contradicts itself in 100,000 different ways. So I just wish that people would keep religion out of debate when it comes to things that are not to do with religion, because it's not something that everybody believes in, and you cannot control other people's lives based upon your beliefs. It just doesn't work like that.
Men are to be strong. Men are to be brave. Men have to take their rightful position. The way our country has been structured to this point have been.
I hate that if men were meant to lead all the time, then why didn't God give them the ability to give birth? Yeah, it's true. It's very true. But I mean, I think it's even farther than that. I just think that there's always been this kind of dominance for men, but like it hasn't always been men are completely in charge though throughout history. I mean, there's been matriarchal societies. It's just men these days feel threatened. They feel like their positions are threatened. They feel like that they've lost their place in society because women need them less, and because there are trans men and things like that where the lines are blurred. And so because male pride is often very easily damaged, this is kind of the backlash to that. I'm shorthanding everything. You would die if you heard my full thought on what he's saying. Well, we can talk about it later. But yeah, I think that's the main thing, is like a lot of men feel threatened or like they're losing their power in some sort of way, which is really dumb.
Because of strong men who have taken a stand, who have fought wars. Now I feel like it's getting so lopsided that our families are degrading. People don't know where they're at in this country.
Now in 2022, masculinity is being redefined. And I think what happens is people get upset when things start to change. No, I think that nobody ever
This is true. So pretty much what I was just saying.
Wants to take that away from men. I think that what we want to do in the world now is start to understand what is masculinity. And it's always been really associated with this very machismo space. And now there's different kinds of men in the world. There's not just biological men. There's also trans men or people who want to be masculine. So I think what's happening now is people are pushing against change, because change is scary and people don't understand. And so I think men, biological men, feel under attack, when I think that's not what's happening here.
The point that you made is 100% correct. There are different phases and people are experiencing in different ways. The feminist movement is, I think they are attacking masculinity within men. I don't want a man to open the door for me. I don't need a man in my life. I can do all of these different things. What they're doing is attacking men. And
how is that attacking men just because they're taking control for themselves of what they're doing? They can open a fucking door. It's not like they don't have hands, right? Like it's not. Now I typically am the type of person where when I go into a gas station, for instance, I'll hold the door for any fucking buddy. I don't care who they are, man, woman, it doesn't matter. That's just a polite thing to do. But when you do it only for women, and that's the point, you're like, it just seems like you're thinking that they have to be protected or they're too weak to do those things. I personally will still open a door for people when I can. And if somebody gets pissed off at me for doing that, then that's their problem. But it's not because I don't think that they're able to do so. Right? And that's kind of what he's saying here is that he feels like he's lost his like importance. He's lost his position in life because a woman can open a door by herself. I don't get it. What's he so afraid of? Yeah, like women are tired of playing the damsel in distress role. It's absolute like ridiculous. There's no reason that women have to be that way, because man, I've seen some women that can hold their own in spades, you know? Like, if you try to do anything with them, they'll stick a fucking knife in your thigh and twist it until so the wound won't close. Like, that's the kind of stuff. Like, I know some badass bitches, man. So it's not just it's that these guys feel like that their place in society is being threatened when it's not. It's just that other people are growing into a more equitable and equal place in society, and men don't like that. For the most part, I'm male, so I'm advocating for the other side.
And that's what's causing the problem.
What part of the feminist group feels like it's attacking? Because I know that most feminism is like wanting equal pay or...
Well, you just said that women not needing men is somehow empowering. You know, having a man is somehow less empowering, or being an individual is somehow less
But that's how
empowering.
women feel.
Right.
Women actually are saying that because that's how they feel. It's as
But
if,
that's not how every woman feels.
but
That-
no one's
that's just
saying
an
every woman.
assumption
They're only
of how
women speak for themselves. So
Right.
all of you are going to have different opinions as biological men.
Absolutely.
Women all have different opinions. Oh, you see a very specific group of women saying this.
I mean, you did just say that's how women feel. So are you speaking on behalf of all
No,
women?
no, I'm not. Let me take that back. So, the women who are saying that feel that way.
Why do you feel that women in general feel disempowered?
No, I don't think in general. No. That's a generalized statement. You can't say that. I said
you're
the
the one
women. No, I
who
did
said
not. I
women
said the
feel
women who
disempowered.
say that.
You associated somehow women are now embracing masculinity, which means that they are now more empowered because they don't need
They don't need a man,
Or
right.
if they're
Men feel empowered when women need
But
them.
I don't think that women's empowerment comes.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is it's like, he's like, oh, what do you need me to do? Well, maybe, okay. So if you want to help out a woman, if you want to make a woman feel good, or feel like you have, or that you're providing for a woman, make her fucking dinner. Like, wash her car, do something like that. Why does it have to be you protecting her? She doesn't need you, but that doesn't mean she doesn't want you around. It just means that she can do things on her own, and that you need to be able to recognize that. Now, that doesn't mean you can't do anything for her, but it does mean that you have to respect the fact that she can do things on her own. But everybody likes it when their partners do things for them. I love it when I've dated girls and they've done, nice things for me or surprised me somehow. I had a girl once take me to bed and breakfast. Never thought I'd like a bed and breakfast in my life. And it had its ups and downs, but I fucking, was ecstatic that she thought so much to do something like that for me. So, it's this whole thing where they think that they've lost a portion of themselves because women simply have the ability to protect themselves.
Comes from having a man or not having a man. So why is it always associated that a woman's now empowered because she doesn't need a man? A woman has always been empowered. Women have never been.
But they've never felt
That's
that.
not true.
I mean,
That's
if
not
we go
true.
back to the 1920s, if you're going to do that, but that's not
But
what
of
we're talking
course,
about.
you
We're
have-
talking about society right now.
Right now, you actually think women are empowered right now?
Absolutely, women are empowered.
Who's the vice president?
And how long did it take for her to become a vice president, though?
Women are somewhat empowered. Women are more empowered in society today than they have been in the past. That is true. But that's progression. That's what happens. Women have it's a tipping point. Women have finally gotten to the point where they realize that they've finally gained the ability to stick up for themselves and solidify their status in society as equal to men, right? They've gotten to that point now, and they realize that they can't let it go back. And so they have to keep fighting for that equality, equal pay, making sure that they're, for instance, women's clothes, Jesus Christ, cost so much more than men's clothes. There's so many things that are in our society that are still, bigoted towards women, or give women the short end of the stick, right? So to say that women are completely empowered now is wrong. They're just empowered enough to finally fight back for themselves and fight for their rights, right? Just like, the civil rights movement has been in stages. There was, the end of slavery, and then the civil rights movement in the 50s and 60s, and then BLM. It's like, it's got to be an ongoing thing. It can't be just, okay, we're done, because then things can backslide. Until everybody is, has equality across the board, there has to be the people that speak out for themselves when they're getting the short end of the stick. Harley says, I'm still on the guy talking about how men were meant to lead. Men feel like they're meant to lead because throughout history, women have been made to play the submissive role. Small-minded men feel attacked by women who are embracing their masculinity. Yeah, it's true. And it's one of those things where men feel like their roles are being taken away, or something like that. These traditional men, these conservative men, especially. Yeah, clothing didn't have a label until men decided they needed to be assigned to a certain gender. It's true. Like I said earlier, the high heels, for instance, were originally made for men. Not a lot of people know that.
There is a right and wrong way to be a man. Take a second to think about it.
I think that when I originally heard the question being asked,
this guy, man, he's insecure. He's insecure as fuck.
I didn't agree with it, but men are not abusive individuals. Men are not to be cowards. Men are to lead their families. And men who do not display that, I don't believe that they are men, in my opinion. And all of the qualities that I see in my father is what I believe a man should be.
All of those characteristics are what make a man. And when I see a man be a coward in the truth, in just speaking the truth, or sticking up for what's right, especially today in America with everything going on, I'm like, those are not men.
Yeah, okay, so I get kind of what they're saying there, but I feel like that's a broad thing. Like, nobody should be a coward or lie or fuck anybody. Like, I mean, those are things that nobody should do, right? Those are like traits that everybody should embrace. So I think that that's too broad to consider it masculine necessarily, right? What I think that it means is like, men have to be stoic, like they were saying, stoic and stuck in their emotions, and doing the Superman stare off into the distance, and being serious all the time, or not showing emotion, that sort of thing.
My name is Clarkson. I'm 24 years old, and I'm a conservative man. My biggest question for the other side really is, are you happy? Anybody that wants to fundamentally change society and change gender roles, to me, that's not happiness. And if we want to fight for acceptance, we need to start with acceptance, which is accepting society for what it is.
At the end of the day, we're all men, and I don't believe there's any wrong way to be a man. We're just redefining what it means to be a man.
But there are things that naturally come to men. So when you say we're just redefining what being a man is, you have to understand you're redefining a fabric in society that has kept the human race and got it to where it is today. So
No, that's this is just like the idea of what men are. Like the traditional idea of what men are is dying out. Like, and it has been dying out for, years and decades, actually. That traditional version of man has been dying out for quite a long time. And even back 100, 200 years ago, the idea, like when there was like aristocracies and things like that, the idea of men back then was different. During the Renaissance, things like that. They would probably, a lot of these guys would probably consider being gay not manly, I guess, right? But except for the gay conservative, which it still baffles my mind on a lot of occasions that there are people like that. But even back in Roman times, the soldiers had male concubines and things like that. So, it's really the idea of men, what it is to be a man, has fluctuated lots throughout the centuries and millennia of human civilization.
So just like aimlessly throwing out, oh, well, we're just redefining what it is to be a man. That's not just like a light subject that we should be talking about.
But why do you think it has to stay the same? Why do we need to have the same thing for hundreds and hundreds of years?
Do you not see the state
It's not the same
of,
thing. It's just, it's
said.
keeping the same qualities.
But do you see the state of our world today? It's not perfect. It's been led by men like throughout all of history, and look where it's gone.
So we're talking about redesigning what it means to be a man. So what do you want to bring to traditional men?
I think it's embracing that you can be vulnerable. I think that a lot of men want to portray strength, 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 but men are people, and I know that men have feelings.
Being a man and masculinity, those are two different things. And I believe that we can redefine whatever that means to anybody by including other types of men or other types of masculinity. I myself am a father, I have a child. Some people would disagree with me being a father because I am transgender. But that being said, I present to the world as a male, my child sees me as a man.
There's proper ways to be vulnerable, right? You don't have to break down in front of your family and cry. It's okay to suffer in silence as well. Strong men, I believe,
What
exude
the fuck, man? That's why guys commit suicide, is because of shit like that. Like, to suffer in silence. It's okay to suffer in silence. Why is that? What does that have to be a thing? Why does that have to be a thing men do? It shouldn't necessarily be that way. I mean, you shouldn't let your emotions overcome you to the point where you can't function anymore, but you shouldn't be afraid to be human.
Qualities that you guys are referring to, I think the problem is overcorrection, right? Some people believe that men need to cry and lay on the ground and be feminine like women. My name is Brandon. I'm 34 years old.
I don't know a lot of women who lay around on the ground and just cry all the time. I mean, I'm sure there's some, but I mean, we're going to speed this up a little bit, guys, because this is a long video.
And I'm a conservative man. I had a lot of curiosities about what it's like to be a person who believes that they're a trans man. I feel like God has created all of us very uniquely, and although I have beliefs and I follow the Bible to the T, I still want to know from other people what their experiences are. Doesn't mean I have to agree, but I really want to know what other people are feeling from the person who's experiencing it real time.
I have male privilege.
Oh, sorry. I've lived both lives, and I can tell you firsthand that it does exist. I am taken much more seriously in my career since I transitioned as a man. Prior to transitioning, I would work just as hard, if not harder, for the same position and not be considered. The minute that I transitioned, I am immediately taken more seriously. I can give you an example. Obviously, with COVID, there's like the mask mandate, right? So I have to tell customers all the time, it needs to be above your nose, right, all day. My manager, who's above me, who is a woman, will have to go to them, tell them they give her a fight. But the minute I just look in their direction, it's up. It doesn't seem like a privilege, but it is, because now my manager has to work 3 times harder for something that's so simple.
I think the word privilege is the thing that turns a lot of people off with this conversation. But that being said, again, myself living my life as a female, pretty much half my life, and then now half my life as a man. There is no way I could not be honest about the fact that my life has changed drastically. Also being a white man, that's also a conversation a lot of people don't want to have. But I have privilege of being white and privilege also of being a man now. I can walk into any room and command that room in a heartbeat because people just do that with men. And I think the thing is that biological men are born into that space, so they'll never ever see it. Why do we now, as women who have become...
Of course, this is on a variable scale. I mean, you got to take into account people who are extroverted and introverted too, as far as being able to command a room. But to a certain extent, like a man is more prominent in a room than a woman, and probably a lot more safe in many aspects too.
Men get to have this thing. It's 100% because we are men. We look like men. Nobody would ever know. No one would ever know that we used to be women. So it's actually a real lived experience.
So I agree with a lot of what you all are saying as far as like transitioning. But as a black man, privilege looks way different for me, because if I'm walking down the street, then I'm seen as a threat by police, by women, by anybody else. Being seen as a man is where my privilege stops and where everything else begins. So I don't see it as privilege.
Okay, I got a lot to say about this topic here. First of all, I mean, we have to be transparent and honest with each other. You know, I think that not everybody on this side presents 100% like a man. Like if I saw you in the streets, I wouldn't think you were a man. You know, men have it really hard in this world, and they've always had it hard.
What the fuck is he talking about? They all look like men to me. I thought there was a guy on the other side that was trans, but he's he's conservative man, and I don't know. Yeah, it seems a little stupid that he would say that.
The wars have been fought by men. They've died in the hundreds of thousands. Men commit suicide more. Men work more the dangerous jobs. You know, if somebody broke in this place right now, who are they going to expect to defend everybody in here is going to be the men. If your family fails, they're not looking at your wife. They're not. They're looking at the man. You know, I just want people to understand that there's some advantages that men have, and then also men do struggle in custody and all kinds of different things.
100%. I 100% agree with you as a man now, right? But I think my perception of it is different than yours because you were born male, you were raised male, you have a whole other space in that, and I totally respect your opinion on that, and I believe that is a true lived experience as a born man.
Yeah, and let me add with the black man because we have a total different reality in that. I don't, in no way, form, or fashion do I go into a room and I feel like I'm less than. I think I command presence when I go into a room because the way I'm dressed and I'm tall. I go in the streets. I've never had a person cross the street. I've never been attacked by a police officer. I was a police officer. You know, I've been pulled over probably 3 times in my entire life.
I mean, my biggest question with this and why I don't necessarily agree with it is because when it comes to privilege, there's not really a way to quantify it. It's very subjective. So like your version of male privilege and your version of male privilege are very different.
So it's hard to see the other side because you've never lived it. The difference between you and us is we see it because we've lived it. You have not. So it's easy to speak and be like, well, it doesn't exist. Well, how would you know?
Well, I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I think everybody has certain privileges, but what I think the question here is what defines male privilege over women? Because women have privileges too. So is there a graph that you guys are calculating to make men have more than women, or what?
The privilege is not acknowledging what you have that comes so easy.
So do you think that your fear, because you live both sides, do you think your fear is something that you have in your mind, or you think it's a reality? Because let me say this: you never really changed as a person. You're the same person.
Right, exactly.
So you have the same physical capabilities that you did when you were a woman.
No.
You don't.
My strength is entirely different after taking
what
hormones.
percentage would you say?
More than 100%.
Okay,
I weighed
so,
like 100 pounds. Now I weigh like 133.
You're still not probably as strong as me.
But it's not about strength. It's that women are targeted. Men are not.
See this? Oh my God! It's that whole thing. Like, ooh, you know, he's got a posture like, oh, you're not as strong as me. But I bet I know some women that could kick the shit out of him. Like, it doesn't matter. You know, there are men that are smaller than you. Do you think the guy to your left of you is as strong as you? He's still a guy. It doesn't mean that as a human, his strength has not increased through his, you know, hormone therapy and things like that. It's
targeted. I mean, maybe sometimes. I'm not saying it's never going to happen.
They're targeted by other men.
Right. But women are targeted by other men. I think women have less of a safe space.
I disagree. Men don't have a safe space. If you go to certain
but I'm talking
cities,
about
they get murdered by other
but I'm not
men.
talking about certain cities. I'm talking about everyday life.
Yeah, every day.
Not
I think that's a blanket
Have
statement.
you been attacked as a woman?
I have. I've been raped. I've been attacked. I can go on and on and on. I was homeless, living in the streets, raped all the time. It happens. It's a real thing. I didn't see the guys on the street getting raped, but
men do get raped.
100%. But the experience of
do you get catcalled down the street? Like,
I mean, women say things to me when I was a
do you
police
feel
officer.
do you feel threatened? You feel empowered though, right?
No, I don't feel empowered. I feel that's
But do you feel scared? Do you feel threatened when a woman catcalls you?
No, I don't. But I don't feel threatened if a man try to challenge me.
Because you have that male privilege.
Right. As a woman.
What if a man was whistling at you when you were walking down the street?
I've had it happen to me. I had gay men whistle to me.
How does that make you feel?
well, that's not the same thing. Gay men and women.
I don't care.
Okay, cool.
I mean, as long as you don't touch me, we cool.
Right.
I know you may think I'm attractive. That's fine. That's cool. I
think women will say the same thing as long as you're not like trying to be predatory. And I've seen it because I go to clubs with my friends who are girls, and I have to tell the men to literally leave them alone because they keep going and they're predatory and they're literally scouting out for women that are drunk or whatever, not even drunk. She could say no 1,000 times and they're still gonna bother her. But the minute that I say something, they stop.
Women are not as strong as men and they get targeted. Sure, yes, that is a privilege that men have over women, but that doesn't mean that men have privilege because of that one situation. Men commit suicide way more than women do.
Because if we're gonna go that route, trans men commit suicide twice the rate.
But that's not
I think what's important here is to distinguish the fact that yes, no one is negating the fact that
Yeah, I mean I think the reason that men have a higher suicide rate is because of the masculine tropes that they're put under, like that they can't show their emotion, or they can't let down their guard at all, things like that. Like why men become so bottled up and hold everything on their shoulders all the time, right? Me included, I do this a lot, or I hold everything on my shoulders. And so there's a societal reason for that, I think, more than just being a man biologically makes you want to commit suicide.
That women get preyed on. You know, there's situations where this happens, right? Like, no one's going to deny that. But we're also just trying to say that it's not like a one-sided coin here, where there's no like men are just, you know, we just have it good and we can do whatever we want. We can't even be the next Supreme Court justice because you know, it's like.
But you know, again, I live as a man, so I see the difference.
Yeah.
When I said I have privilege and I walk into a room, of course. But then there's other things that are.
Yeah, there's only been 4 women who have been Supreme Court justices. Only 4. So what do you mean you can't be you might not be the next Supreme Court justice, but that doesn't mean there's never going to be another man who's a Supreme Court justice.
Expected of me now as a man that I would never were expected.
So would
of
you
me.
guys agree that there's such thing as female privilege?
Oh sure, 100%.
My wife has privilege because she has me.
That's right.
So she don't have to worry about her
Right
safety
on.
because I'm there.
I don't believe that as a man, it's like, you know, there's marketing for women-owned brands. Like I said, I can't be the next Supreme Court justice. Like, women are very much more empowered today, which I think is, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, like, good for you. But I think that the man I probably have privilege because I'm, you know, 6 foot 210. Like, no one's picking on me when I walk down the street. You know, I used to live in Chicago and I used to walk home all the time at night. But like, was that smart? Probably not. But I felt a little safe because, you know, I'm not 5 foot 100 pounds. I'm Max. I'm 29 and I'm a conservative man. In today's society, women and men can be whatever they want and be as successful or strong or as big of a leader as they choose. So I'm just wondering, in a society that is so seemingly level, more level than ever before, why are we transitioning to different genders to find, and what are we looking for?
Biology.
Well, I mean, not everybody has the thought that they were born who they were supposed to be. I mean, I don't get why he's so concerned about it. If you're happy in your own skin, then be happy in your own skin, but let other people that are not happy in their own skin seek out a way to be so.
Determines gender.
So sex and gender, people try to argue that they're different, but sex and gender actually go hand to hand. And our biology, being a man, comes down to every fiber within our body. So whether that be DNA, chromosomes, testosterone levels, bone density, there's a whole bunch of different factors that go into it, and it all has to do with biology.
So biology, I 100% believe in biology. Today we talk about biology being a social construct. I disagree with that as a transgender person. I was born biologically female. I always acknowledge that, and today I live as a male. Now that being said, sex and gender, they are trying to separate those things. Gender can be, I've chosen my gender. As you see, nobody would, I think, probably understand that I used to be a female. Now many people do, like you just said, believe that sex and gender are one thing and you can never change those. I'm not trying to change anything. I'm trying to show the world that this is how I feel by presenting the outside. But I think denying biology is where we get into a lot of problems.
So if you want to be, you know, seen as a man, then like,
right on.
Who are you to? I don't care. I mean, you do you, whatever makes you happy. But I think like it becomes a slippery slope. Like, how are we going to deny basic human facts? Like, there's two genders.
I think that causes problems, and it causes problems for me.
Yeah.
Because the minute I start denying your biology, now you feel attacked by me. Right. And I don't want you to feel attacked by me. I never want you to feel, I want to be a part of, if that makes sense. You don't have to agree with my choice of how I live my life, but all I ask for is respect.
What do you have on your driver's license and your birth certificate?
Right,
do you change it to male or do you change it to?
So that being said, I transitioned to live as a man 29 years ago. So that was way before you see any of this stuff. And I had to acknowledge my biology, right? That being said, my license, I've traveled the world. It has to say male. Can you imagine if I showed up at the airport and they're like, female? Dude, there's something.
Yeah. See, like he's so passing as a male, that there would never be anybody who would they would think he was lying if he didn't have male on his license.
I'm going on here, but I actually got my birth certificate changed to male. I was the first person to do that here in Los Angeles. But that being said, I kind of think that it might have been a mistake to do that now, looking forward today, because I never thought we would be having this conversation.
I'm glad you said that because I love that people can express themselves. We live in America. It doesn't matter what I believe, what my religion is. I love that people can live their best life. I'll never, ever in my life protest or try to go against a person who wants to identify. The problem is when you begin to try to change language and you begin to try to change reality, and then therefore it changes on the children, and all of that becomes problematic. If a person says, okay, I acknowledge I'm born as a man or a woman, but I want to identify as this, cool, I respect that. And even if I didn't want to see it that way, and some people may be a little more ambiguous, I wouldn't never disrespect you. I'll call you by your name.
That's right.
Whatever name that you want to be associated with, I'll do that. And I think if everybody in the country can get on that same page, I think we'll see less division.
I've noticed in a lot of the trans individuals.
Notice he didn't say I'd call you by your preferred gender pronouns. He said I'll call you by your name. Which, okay, I mean, I guess if he doesn't misgender him, that's okay. But if he's misgendering him deliberately, that's an issue. Even if he does call him by the name that he wants to be called, because I'm sure he likes to be called a man over a woman.
That I've met, the older generation who had it a lot harder in society to be accepted is a lot more willing to have the conversation.
We didn't have social media. I didn't have cell phones. I didn't have computers when I transitioned. This is how you build bridges. I'm Buck. I'm 59 years old, and I'm a trans man. Because I'm an elder trans man now, and there's a much newer generation, there's a definite space where I have a different way of being than the younger generation, and why I tend to call myself a transsexual man. And I believe in biology. I believe in binary. So it really does not necessarily align with the new thought process that is happening with the newer generation.
So I love this question. With trans folks, biology does change. Our bone density does change. Our muscle structure does change. Our testosterone levels do change. So biologically, we do change. Anatomically, now that's where surgeries come into play. So when we're talking about biology and gender that can't be changed, our biology absolutely and concretely changes.
Oh, that's a good point. You know, even if you transition, you're not just wearing male clothes, and a, you know, what do they call it? The chest compression thing, you know. If you're wearing, like, you know, just hiding those aspects of yourself, your biology doesn't change. But if you're taking, like, hormone therapies and things like that, and getting surgery, your biology is definitely being changed. It's a fact. Bone density gets more. You grow more hair. Your voice gets deeper. Biology changes.
Not the DNA. But our
DNA does not change.
Yeah, DNA is not going to change for anyone.
So you acknowledge there's a biological difference between males and females, because some people on the other side would say there's no difference. Like a female, like I could look like a girl, not having testosterone, but I'm still a male.
Some people are male, some people are female, chromosomally. But when we start to take testosterone, our bodies do biologically change.
But what about trans men who don't take testosterone?
Then their bodies don't biologically change.
That means then they're biologically still female, right?
Well, and gender in itself is something we get to choose. Okay,
that's right.
Just like you said.
Well, in your life, you get to choose. Not, you don't get to choose it for the world, but you get to choose it.
No, I get to choose my gender because I've been on testosterone for 10 years. Okay, going on 11 years.
But there's some anatomy that will never change.
That's right.
Right? I mean, you still have ovaries. You still have, you know, the female reproductive system. You said that you had a child.
Yes, I've given birth. I no longer have female reproductive organs.
Right, but you had that. You will never get male productive organs.
Now, when you think about it, the male and female productive organs are similar, and they're nearly the same. They're different. Right. They're different in size.
Even if,
okay, biologically.
And they're different in functionality, too.
Not necessarily, because the testes and the ovaries are very much similar. One is an egg, one is a fertilizer.
But
and that's the difference.
But I never can produce sperm.
You're absolutely right.
Ever.
You're absolutely right.
Well, for now, anyways. I mean, they may come up with a way to do that eventually, where trans women can give birth, for instance. They might be able to figure that out, but as of right now, no.
They can never produce ova.
And you guys are saying that gender is like a social construct. Is that what you're saying too, that you could change it? But also, if you want to be technical about it, age is a social construct, your ethnicity and race is a social construct, and I'm Hispanic. I can't say I'm Chinese because I like Chinese food. I could bleach my skin all I want. I could wear Chinese clothes.
No, race is not. How is ethnicity going to be a construct?
It's all social constructs.
So how exactly?
If you look up, is race a social construct? Ethnicity a social construct? Is time a social construct? Right. Everything's a social construct if you want to think about it that way. But we have set truths and we can't change those truths. If you want to say you're trans man, that means you're a biological female that thinks that you're a male.
I am a biological male. I'm an anatomically.
See, anatomically, he's gonna have different version of it then. Right. And I think it's really important that we understand
and it's anatomical.
Yeah, anatomical, you can change your gender as well too, and there's been advances in these types of surgeries, so that they're getting more and more close to the actual reality of a biological male or female.
Okay, because biologically I have shifted. Okay, trans meaning going from one to the next.
Biologically and all these things, I know that there's importance for you guys, but meeting me or seeing me, you would never know. So why is it important?
Well, no, because just say if I was a woman, and I wanted to date you, what are you going to tell me?
I would tell you that I'm trans.
No, I'm saying you can't tell me that you're a man.
I mean, I'm still a man.
No, but you got to tell me. You got to tell me that you were born a woman. You have to.
I mean, I don't have to.
Well, because if I go down, if I see you in your pants,
right.
I'm going to see something different, and that will be troubling to me if I had an expectation.
But again, this is like leading off the topic, but I mean, to answer your question, if you must know, I do tell the person that I'm talking to or interested that I'm transgender. I don't think that you need it to, you don't need a penis to be a man. And I know that you may disagree, which is fine, like I get it, but I don't want one.
Now, I have a question for all of you. Do your penises make you men?
Yes,
part of our,
like,
part
no,
of what makes me a man,
is that what makes
well,
you?
I said being a man's ingrained within every part of your body. So our cells are
Right,
our
but
penis too.
if you had to look at the difference between us.
This reminds me of a thought experiment that I read a long time ago, and it's imagine that your body slowly deteriorated, except for your mind, and slowly you lose body parts, but they're replaced with inorganic, synthetic parts, right? So you lose your hand, you get a hand that's synthetic, right? And then you get your arms replaced, and sooner or later your whole body. So at what point do you stop becoming human if your mind's still human, if your brain is still human, if your thoughts are still that of a human being? At what point do you stop becoming human? Right? Would you still recognize yourself as a human? Would you still say you were human? If your brain was completely human, you had just synthetic made parts. You were a brain in a new body that was not biological. But your brain is completely biological and completely human. What point do you stop becoming human? And this is kind of correlated to this because at what point do they stop being women, or what point how much of you has to be a man for you to be considered a man, right? And that's kind of where I think the controversy lies here with a lot of this. Now, I believe that if gender-wise you are wanting to be, or you consider yourself a man, then you should be able to be seen as a man. And even further, if people have testosterone treatments or gender reassignment surgeries and things like that, then even their biology changes. So at what point are they no longer considered a woman? Or at what point, like say, you get castrated somehow, like, I don't know, like it's a thing that happens to you somehow. Does that make you not a man anymore? If you get your dick cut off in an accident, does that make you not a man anymore? I mean, I know those are fringe cases, but it's relevant to the conversation here.
And between you, now would that difference be the lack of a penis?
If we were naked.
Okay. If we're gonna minimize being a man to that particular anatomy,
we didn't minimize.
No. I'm asking the question. Okay. If we minimize it, because this is where we're going, is anatomy, right? Because that's where we've gotten.
Basic
okay.
biology, yeah.
So if we get there, so do your penises make you more men than us?
It's part of
it's
what
not
does.
making more or less. It's we're a biologically man. You're not a biological man.
It's not a spectrum, so it's not a question that we can answer, because you're saying on the spectrum, would this make us more of a man than you? But no, it's because we are a man and you guys aren't.
Well, we're different.
So we're not men. Is exactly what you just said.
In my view, you guys are appropriating the gender and you are living as a man, but biologically you are not a man. So to me, it's not. You can't say, okay, well, does that make us more of a man? That's not even a question to ask, because you're not a biological man. When it comes down to asking questions that make me start to change what the truth is and what the truth isn't, putting it on a spectrum when it's an objective truth, that's where I draw the line.
What's the biggest problem with what he said? It doesn't make what you feel any different. The biological truth is the truth, and why can't that be the truth? And you also say,
because it's not the biological truth anymore. The lines are blurred, and that's what you have a problem with, because the lines are blurring, right? It is a spectrum these days. It's not a binary situation. And that's where the misstep is. That's where they're wrong, is that the thing is that there is a scale to these things now. There is a spectrum to these things now, especially with modern technology and the ability of people to be who they want in this day and age. It's not going to change. It's going to be more and more so. Like, we might have gender, or we might have gene therapy someday that allow you to be part giraffe. who the fuck knows? But I mean, I don't know who would want to be a giraffe or anything like that. You know, since we are the you know, smartest, or at least the only conscious beings on the planet that we know of. But yeah, there is a less of a binary to these things now.
But I feel like on the inside that I'm a man and I'm going to present that way.
The argument is that people try to invalidate who we are with that. I'm not saying that you guys are doing that, but a lot of society in the world does that. Well, biologically, you're female. What hurts trans people that people don't realize what they're doing is it's very harmful. You got to be aware of what you're saying, what you're putting out there. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, 100%. I would, and that's why I think we all agree. We would never try to offend you or anything like that. To be honest, if I saw any one of you in the streets, I don't care. It's not going to bother me that you want to. Right. I would know unless I pulled your pants down or something. Right. Why do you feel like you have to present the way you do? You know, facial hair. Could you right. be a man without having facial hair?
I mean, yeah.
Because you feel like you're a man.
I'm in the early stages of testosterone. I haven't hit 1 year yet. But personally, for me, you know, I crave, you know, having a full-on beard like these fine gentlemen and you guys are. Like, I crave it, you know, like. But I do believe like not having like this.
Yeah, you know, like it's like when you're a pubescent kid and you're like, oh, I'm getting my first chin hair, you know, like you get excited about that shit. Like you get excited about growing and progressing as the person you're becoming, you know. You know, fucking remember the first time you got a boner? Like that shit was exciting, you know. Like you know, to be able to grow facial hair was a thing. Like I pretended to shave when I was little because that's something that I wanted as I got older, because I embody myself as a man. Now, there are men out there who don't want facial hair and may grow up and decide to be trans someday, and they're going to be excited about other things like, you know, their hormonal changes, how they're appearing to others and to themselves.
Little small peach fuzz I have going on, it does make me feel more dysphoric. It makes me like feel like, oh, this is how I presented before transitioning.
Do you feel like it's something that has gone wrong at birth? Like, you know, you're born and you say, well, genetics and evolution says right. this. Why do I feel like this?
Yeah, I mean, I think questioning it was something that I always wondered, because sometimes when people say like, oh, like it was a choice, which I hear a lot on the other side all the time, like it was a choice, I was legit born this way. Like I could remember from, I think 4 or 5 years old, where like I didn't feel like a girl, you know what I mean? And I can't tell you why that happened. It was just my path in this life. And it's something that I honored. And, you know, it was really hard for me to continue living, especially when puberty hit. You know, like time of month comes in, obviously anatomy changes, like, and that was the biggest thing for me, where I knew that like, okay, I can't do this. It's like you're not in your own home.
Children should be allowed to transition.
Well, I was gonna say, I find it very interesting that you and I are the only ones that stepped up, especially since we're younger. And
you should allow children to feel what they feel, because I felt the way that I felt for as long as I can remember, and it's something that I cannot deny.
Yeah.
You know, although my mother is supportive, when I was younger, I wasn't allowed to wear boys' clothes because that wasn't right. Now I know we're talking about transitioning. It doesn't always have to be hormones. It's like transitioning in society. So
yeah, I was completely accepting of my kid when Sal came out as trans to me, but I didn't really understand it completely. But you know what? I've taken great strides to learn how he feels. And why he chooses to present himself as a male. Or, you know, it's not something that is my decision necessarily. Now, if they wanted to do something medically, then we would have to have a talk about it, and I would have to learn more about that stuff as well. But from what I understand, puberty blockers, for instance, do not affect somebody negatively, and they can stop taking them and go back to normal, right? So, yeah. I don't think that there's too much wrong there. Now, gender reassignment surgery is a bit of a different story. I think that you should probably wait for that until later on in your life.
Being able to dress more masculine. I did when I was younger, but as I got into middle school, kids change, people are mean, so, you know, I dressed how I would in society, so I dress like a girl, whatever, but I think that children should be allowed to express themselves in whatever way makes them feel comfortable.
Yeah. Kids are struggling to be who they are, and there's more rates of suicide for trans individuals because they're like, there's literally being laws put in place to prevent them from being who they are, and that's not right. That's not right.
Okay, so I work with children. This is where I have like the biggest problem with the trans stuff is with the children, because people, like I'm sure you guys would agree, you want to inject them with the hormones to stop their puberty, their normal puberty. They haven't even developed the prefrontal cortex yet, and you want to stop their natural puberty from occurring to affirm their gender, and then later on they regret it. I think that's not a good thing.
See, that's why this is a loaded question, because transition can mean many things for children. Now, I totally, as a transsexual person, disagree with giving children hormone blockers, medication, surgery, but what I do agree with is socially transitioning, which means what? Because I did that, okay? And I did that in the 60s and 70s. My parents dressed me like Buck, I was a boy, you know, I didn't have any problems because I just lived, we used to call it a tomboy, right? So that was totally, and I went through puberty and I did all the things. I do not believe children can make those choices, and I do not believe it's okay and ethical for a parent to make those choices for a child. But I do believe gender dysphoria exists in children. I had it, 100% it's there. But to give medication to a child is so unethical to me that you would actually, you're exactly what you said, you're stunting brain growth, you're stunting all of these things. They don't have enough research on it. So I'm in agreement with transitioning medically for children is not okay for me, but I do believe in a social space.
When you say a social transition, it's interesting to me because we can't control what happens in a social situation.
That's right. That's right.
So to me, and we talked about suicide rates among young trans people, this whole ideology is telling people to derive their value off of what somebody else is saying about them
That's
or what
right.
somebody else affirms to them. So we say that, you know, society is the problem and we're not allowing people to be who they are, and that's why they're committing suicide. But maybe it has to do with the messaging that we're sending to these kids, that you derive your value from if somebody uses your correct pronoun, or you derive your value if this person accepts you for wearing a dress. Be who you are, but tell them to be empowered about it and not get that empowerment from somebody else.
I feel like that's really kind of inconsiderate to say that someone would take their life because of what someone else says. To somebody, that is important. To somebody, I know have friends who their family does not use the correct pronouns and they transition, they live in the same household. This person struggles with depression and anxiety. Could you imagine living in an environment like that where you're no longer validated?
Yeah, I mean, these guys don't understand dysphoria. I don't think. I mean, I don't even fully understand it. I respect it, and I understand that it's a real thing. And I've had, you know, lots of experience of people explaining it to me. And so, but these guys don't understand it because they don't, you know, first of all, usually conservatives lack empathy, so they can't put themselves in somebody else's shoes as easy. And also, they're not knowing exactly what these feelings are that people are going through. So how are they able to accurately say that it's not a valid thing?
That's coming from your own parents.
But if you base your validation off of other people, this is a hard truth, but if your sole validation
No, you definitely have to do it. Listen,
based off
I could
other
give
people,
a shit what everyone thinks about me. I do what I want. But for everyone, that's not the case because everybody has different personalities.
right, but that doesn't make it any, that doesn't mean that
But
we
still,
should
but
be
what you're not
telling people to
acknowledging,
get
listen, what you're not
validation from
acknowledging though
others.
is that in that environment, it is not supported.
I'm acknowledging that. I'm just
Okay.
saying that we're saying that for some reason they should look for that validation from somebody
When
else
you love
rather than find it
somebody and you have a
within.
family, you want them to
But you're
validate you.
focusing not on the individual, you're focusing on the people outside of that
Yeah, but the
individual. I'm
individual,
focusing on empowering that individual.
But part of being a
You're-
person is needing to be validated. You don't need to be validated ever in your life from your
No.
family or your friends.
I get my
Never.
validation from within, and then the
Right,
no
but
way.
if we're talking about children, okay, if we're talking,
child.
okay, I was an 8-year-old when I found out that I wasn't biologically male, right? I was 8 when I found out that I wasn't the same as my brothers, okay? And so going through that process, I attempted suicide 4 times because my mother was like, well, you are a girl. When you're 8 and you're 12 and you don't have anyone else that is in your space, when you don't have anyone else that lives in the same house as you to tell you you're okay, where are you supposed to go? How are you supposed to garner your own self-validation if the people that are raising you don't validate who you are?
As a father, you know, my
That's very
duty is to
true.
raise my children the way I believe is right. And if my child somehow struggles with this, which is fine, we'll have that conversation. But I'm going to let it play out the way I believe it should be played out. And at 18 years old, you can do whatever you want to do. If you don't want to wear dresses, that's fine. I mean, just wearing, if you want to dress like a boy, don't make you want to be a boy. Don't mean you have to be a boy. My mom was a tomboy, and my mom had me and my brother, and she's a woman, you know, and she lives like that. But, you know, you may want to dress a little different. Maybe a boy want to do cheerleading or something like that.
Right.
But that don't mean you need to transition to something else. So I want that to play out until my child is old enough to make that decision on their own. Also, you have to teach your children to have balance, because if you just want mommy and daddy to acquiesce to everything you want, that's not reality. You have to understand that mom and dad may not see me this way. They love me. I see myself this way, and I disagree with how they speak to me or how they're, but I love them as well.
Okay, but that doesn't, what's that have to do with the fact that they're doing damage? They may think that they love their kid, but if they're denying their identity to them, then they will probably be damaged by that.
I love, like my son, if he said it, he was, and I'm a Christian and I don't believe in homosexuality. I don't. I respect anybody that feel that way. I never, protest you at all. If my son came to me, it would be a struggle for me to want to go to his wedding. I'm just going to be honest. But I think that my son should understand this is the way my dad feel. I love him. This is the way I feel, and we have mutual love. And that don't mean I hate you, that just mean we disagree. And I wish that same sentiment would be, and I think it's the same on this panel. Like, there's no hate in any of this. Right. I love every single person on this side, and we may think of things differently, but we love each other. It can't be one-sided.
I am lucky, I'm 41, and I'm a trans man. One of my greatest fears as a trans man is my life being taken from me because I'm a trans man. Transitioning in a black neighborhood with gang members as neighbors, they weren't having that. So the more that my body started to look a lot like theirs, I was challenged on a regular basis, was beaten up because someone recognized me from prior to my transition and approached me and confronted me and called me a liar and told me I was a bitch. And I, out of safety, was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And they cold cocked me and I lost a front tooth.
I grew up with a positive.
Yeah, that would suck, man. Yeah, because, living in that environment where there may be people who have a large amount of toxic masculinity can be dangerous for somebody who's transitioning into a man from a woman.
Positive father figure.
This is good.
I think for me it's surprising because I would believe that a woman or a person who's born as a woman who now identifies as a man didn't have a positive role model as a man, and therefore they felt somewhat insecure as a woman, which makes them, feel a certain way and want to be a certain different person. Maybe they want to be the man that their father never was, or whatever the case may be. And so it was very interesting. I mean, being honest, it was interesting to see pretty much a majority of you guys come forward.
That's so great. I think that's really important that you say that, because I do think a lot of people probably feel that way about guys like me, right? That our fathers we didn't have the right upbringing. Or my father was amazing. I grew up really like a little boy. I always felt like a little boy.
Yeah, that kind of bothers me a little bit, actually, because, I consider myself a good father, and for people to think that I probably, my kid's transitioning because I'm inadequate as a father and as a man, may be, it seems a little demeaning, that people would think that.
My parents actually raised me, and I'm 59 years old, so that was in the 60s and the 70s when we didn't even talk about this kind of stuff, but my parents actually felt it from me. So I think that that's a misconception that people think about people like us.
Any good father pushes their child to, one, feel self-love, and to feel like they can be who they want, do what they want, and have life of liberty in the pursuit of happiness, right? Like our founding fathers. And so it's fatherlessness, or having a missing dad, is one, a pandemic in its own, and it's one that obviously I'm sure Brandon can attest to. It's so critical to have a father in the house, because kids get lost when they don't have one, and having a father that's loving and strong and someone you can rely on is the reason why we're all comfortable with who we are.
I had several different father figures in my life. So it wasn't, I had a dad, but then I had my grandfather and I had my uncle. It takes a village to raise a child, right? But all of those different perspectives raised me as a well-rounded human. If we take the masculinity out of it, just as a human, I got to see different perspectives. And so now as a father that has given birth to a child, and that child being a male, right, I'm able to raise him with those same ideals that I'm able to identify because of the father figures that I had.
I didn't have my father growing up. He was not present in my life at all. So it showed me that some men can step up, like my grandfather and my stepfather, who have taken me in and showed me how to take care of myself, how to be, strong and dependable. And all I've been able to do is give more love to all people that I interact with.
Right.
So it was really important for me to have those figures.
I think this is a really important thing to show people that are watching this, because a lot of times I feel like we can blame any issues in society or anything that arises on the generation that came before us. So any issues that arise in our society, it's like, there's not always a reason why it's happening. We just need to address the issue and solve it.
I grew up with all women. My parents were divorced and I lived with my mom. I had my aunts. So I was raised by women, but my dad was there sometimes, and then my stepdad took me in as his own, so I had my stepdad as a father figure.
I grew up with all women as well. My mom used to tell me I have to be your mom and your dad. So there'd be times where I got both. She was super sweet with me,
I've heard
or
that
really strict on me, and she taught me a lot as well. Growing up with women, it taught me a lot of vulnerability.
When you were talking to you, I was like, I relate to you very well. But yeah.
I'm Jacob. I'm 27 years old, and I'm a trans man. So the relation with my dad and how unsupportive he is has been a challenge for me, but it's something that I've learned to grow past. And I encourage everyone that even if you don't have a parent who is supportive, to still be authentically yourself, because your life is meant to be lived for you. And I think that choosing my happiness above all else has made my life that much better, and I wouldn't change anything. Even though he wasn't supportive, I still wouldn't have him here.
Good for him.
Listening to all your guys' points, I would definitely say, yeah, I did have a father figure. He was in the Marines, and he has this very toxic masculinity mindset. A lot of anger built up that I can definitely tell he suppressed, in the Marines, because that's what he was taught to do. That's what the Marines are about. He always carried that with him, and I think that's what he tried to instill in me and my siblings at a very young age, which made it hard for me to be vulnerable with myself. And I just saw a lot of anger issues that were, very violent sometimes. And since coming out as trans, I feel like he's been more willing to understand me more and trying to figure out who I am as a person. And because of that, I feel like our relationship has definitely got a lot stronger since then.
I can't imagine how difficult it was to come home and then try to be vulnerable after suppressing so much pain.
Yeah, I think that the whole ideas about men and the military kind of plays into that a little bit, right? Make people very, and which is why I think that so many men have had a problem traditionally of women being in the military, because they think it's going to make the army weak or something like that, because they
and hurt for years.
Do things like that, because they have emotions, because they don't tend to hold stuff back and hold it in.
So it's good to hear that he's learning and kind of evolving and opening up. That's something where you guys were talking about vulnerability, right? And it's like there's times when it's good to be hard.
I don't show emotion as much as I'd like.
I definitely have sensed and noticed since transitioning that being on testosterone has made me cry less, which is very interesting because I believe like before I transitioned and started taking testosterone, I feel like not being able to cry as much, it makes me feel like, I'm like, damn, I wish I could cry right now, but it's not gonna happen. Hi, I'm Gibby and I'm a trans man. Before transitioning, I guess only presented as lesbian, but since transitioning, I've been able to be more comfortable with my sexuality. I've definitely seen on like dating apps and stuff, a lot of conservative men fetishizing trans individuals. And it's interesting because a lot of the time they say that they don't identify as gay or, within the community, and yet they're fetishizing my community.
Yeah, that's interesting that happens. That there's a fetishization of trans women too, like mental, like fetishize trans women, and then that can kind of lead to violence sometimes. But I never thought about it on the other way around, where it would be trans men being something that conservative men fetishize because they don't want to consider themselves gay, even though they may be more attracted to masculine figures. It's pretty interesting.
So I don't know about you guys, but I always speak my mind. If I feel a certain way, I'll tell somebody, and that probably cost me a lot of relationships, but that's just how I am. So
I don't think there's anything wrong with, I know we talked about vulnerability, a long time ago. I don't think there's anything wrong with being vulnerable. I think, like we said, there's times and places for it. Knowing when it's okay to be vulnerable and being self-aware of that, and then, being strong when you need to, and being sad, when it's appropriate. But I certainly am not as vulnerable or not as emotional as probably I should, because it's not something that I always did growing up. But I don't feel like I have any real issues like suppressing. I just feel like I kind of get it out in other ways.
Yeah, that's great you look at it like that, because I believe for me, like my personal experiences, like because I was wanting, to transition at a very young age, and my dad being in the military, being a veteran, he would see me being vulnerable at times, and he'd be like, well, don't you want to be a man? And that would make me feel like, oh, am I not supposed to be vulnerable anymore? Now that I'm gonna transition. And it was just like very hard for me because, like I said earlier, it was hard for me to have that father figure at that time of my life.
My process of, digesting emotions is by myself, and I use that time to self-reflect. So if I'm feeling angry, or if I'm, feeling really passionate about something, or whatever the emotion is, sometimes I pull back and I don't show that emotion because I'm reflecting on it and trying to understand why it's there. So I think a lot of times people can think men aren't showing enough emotion, but in reality, they're just self-assessing why that emotion is there in order to see what it's trying to teach us.
Right. I think when I was female, I was much more angry. I was just reactive, angry, like, "Arr." And then as I became a man, I cry more now as a man than I ever did as a woman. And I think it's because I'm at peace with myself. And so before I was just so angry about being a woman and everyone calling me she and seeing a girl, and I was a fashion model. So that really just took it to a whole other level. And then once I became a man, it was like, whoa, I can actually relax. And I think I do the same thing. I self-reflect on myself. I want to be this type of man that is more vulnerable and that is more
I know it's kind of like not a good thing, but I'm curious, man. He said he's a fashion model. I kind of want to see some of the fashion pictures. I'm interested. That's
Assessing my own emotions.
Thank you, everyone.
Right on. Thank you.
That was cool.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Thank you.
all right, guys. So there were a lot of good points in there. There were a lot of I think misunderstandings from the side of the conservative people. And they say they don't want to hurt people sometimes, but I think that they don't understand that some of the ways that they put things they just do. So yeah. Interesting Jubilee video. One of many that I've done on the channel already. All right, guys. God, I am so sorry, but I'm not feeling very well. I'm kind of phoning it in right now. So I am probably going to end stream, but I promise Friday we will do some gaming. We're gonna do some of that stuff and have a little bit more fun. I'll be a little less feeling like crap then. And be looking out for some more produced videos and things too. We'll do that. But I'm not feeling well tonight. As you can tell, I've been coughing, and I think I muted my mic for too long one time while I was trying to talk. So it's just something I need to do. I think I need to get some rest. But thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.